The Snow Queen, written by Hans Christian Andersen. This is an enchanting tale about friendship. Two young children named Kai and Gerda are best friends and would do anything for one another. So when Kai begins to act differently, Gerda knows that something terrible has happened. She goes on a quest and a journey to try to save her best friend. Once upon a time, there was a wicked troll who created a very powerful mirror. Everything good that was reflected in the mirror looked ugly. Everything evil looked appealing. The troll was proud of this creation. He decided to bring the mirror up into the heavens. Higher and higher he flew, laughing along the way. The higher he flew, the more he laughed. The mirror slipped out of his hands and fell to the ground, shattered in a million pieces. The pieces, as small as tiny grains, were picked up and carried by the wind. If a flake like that got into someone's eye, that person would forever see everything distorted. If a splinter got into someone's heart, it would freeze their heart. The troll laughed even harder about this. He couldn't wait to see the evil his mirror would inflict upon the world. In an old city, there lived two families who shared a small rose garden. A girl named Gerda lived in one home with her grandmother, and a boy named Kai lived in the other. One wintry day, Grandma, Kai, and Gerda watched the snow fall out the window. "Look at the white bees swarm," Grandmother said. "Do snowflakes have queens like bees do?" Kai asked. "Yes, they do," Grandmother said. The Snow Queen flies at the center of a snowstorm. She blows onto the windows and makes ice flowers. Gerda imagined the Snow Queen and shivered. "Could she come indoors if you left the windows open?" "If she comes inside, I will melt her with the warmth from the stove and turn her into a puddle," Kai said boldly. Just then, an icy gust of wind came through the window. "Ouch!" Kai cried. A small piece of evil mirror had flown in from the snow. The next moment another splinter into Kai's heart, and right away his world was forever changed. "What happened? Did you get the snow in your eyes?" Gerda asked. "Get off me, girl! I am sick and tired of sitting here. I'm going out to ride my sleigh." "But it's too late," Gerda said. "I don't care. I'm going to do what I want," said Kai. And away he went. Kai ran outside to join the others. It drove so fast that Kai didn't have time to take a closer look at it. He managed to tie his sled behind this fine sleigh. The sleigh sped up, pulling Kai from the town square and through the city gates, farther than Kai had ever been. Snowfall turned into a blizzard, and Kai couldn't see anything around him. He was very cold and very scared. The other town children headed home. The snow fell harder, and the snowflakes grew bigger. Finally, the sleigh came to a silent stop. The driver turned to look at Kai, his eyes piercing. It was the Snow Queen. "Come, Kai, come sit with me and get warm." The Snow Queen's voice whistled in the winter wind. Kai climbed into the sleigh and pulled a fur blanket over him. The Snow Queen kissed his forehead, and he was warm. She kissed him again, and he couldn't remember anything, not Gerda, not Grandma, and not his home. She stared up at the moon all night long as the snowstorm whipped and whirled around him. When day broke, he slept at the feet of the Snow Queen. As time passed, no one knew where Kai had gone. Most believed he had drowned in the icy river, but not Gerda. She often looked out her window at the empty garden and longed for Kai. Winter turned into spring, and Gerda went to the river with her new red shoes and dropped them into the water. "I will give you my new shoes if you will give me back my friend," she told the river. The current carried her shoes right back to her. The river didn't want her shoes, because the river hadn't taken Kai. But Gerda thought she But Gerda thought she just needed to get farther from the shore. She stepped into the little boat and untied the dock. She stepped into a little boat and untied it from the dock. Too late, she realized she hadn't any oars to control the boat. All the way down the river, Gerda finally reached land. She climbed out of the boat and cried for help. Her calls were answered by an old woman. The old woman was lonely and wanted Gerda to stay with her forever. After listening to Gerda's story, she snuck outside into the garden and removed all of her roses. She didn't want anything to remind Gerda of home. Gerda decided to stay. She almost forgot about her journey to find Kai, until one day many months later, the woman wore a large brimmed hat that was decorated with roses. Gerda again remembered her friend. She went out into the garden, determined to find him. One by one, Gerda asked the tiger lilies, the honeysuckles, the daisies, and the buttercups. Each told her a story about someone lost, but not about Kai. Gerda knelt in the dirt and wept. As her tears splashed onto the ground and mixed into the soil, the roses reappeared. "We have been down under the earth," they said. "We know that Kai is not dead." Gerda knew that she needed to keep looking. She continued on her journey. Every day the air grew colder, and Gerda became more tired. When the first snow of winter had fallen, Gerda approached a crow. Gerda was lonely, and she told the crow her story. Maybe, the crow said, "I might know where the boy is. The boy I've seen now lives with the princess." The land they were on belonged to a princess who not long ago had decided to get married. She had decreed that all the eligible men in the land would come to the castle and woo her. Whoever was most clever would receive the princess's hand in marriage. The crow watched the eager men line up in the palace. There he saw a boy, just like Gerda's description. "That must be Kai," Gerda said. "He was carrying a knapsack." "You must mean his sled," Gerda corrected. This boy was so clever. "Surely that's Kai," Gerda said. "Can you take me to him?" Gerda followed the crow to the royal garden. The door opened onto a dark, winding staircase. Once up the stairs, they passed from one ornate hallway to the next. Gerda pushed the door open and peered at the sleeping bodies. The prince had a head of brown hair. It must be Kai. Gerda raced to the side and shook him. The prince and princess awoke and lit the lamp. By the glow of the light, Gerda saw the prince's face. It wasn't Kai after all. She couldn't help but weep. She had been so sure that her journey had ended and that she would be reunited with Kai. The prince and princess listened to Gerda's story. They were good people, and they wanted to help. The next morning they dressed Gerda in their finest clothes. "You are welcome to stay with us," the princess said. But Gerda knew she couldn't. Kai was out there, and she needed to find him. The prince and princess outfitted her with warm boots and muff and gave her a golden coach. "Goodbye and good luck," they called after her. Gerda was very warm and glad to be moving much faster, but her comfort didn't last long. In the dark forest, her golden carriage shone like the moon. "Gold!" cried voices. Robbers attacked them. They stole her horse and killed the driver. Then they dragged Gerda out of the coach. "Let's kill her too!" someone cried, and Gerda covered her face in fear. "Stop!" a small voice piped up. "Don't kill her. She could come home and be my playmate." The voice belonged to a robber girl. "I won't let them kill you. You must not make me angry, though. Do you promise?" the girl asked. The robber girl took Gerda to her home. She boasted about her collection of animals. "And those are my doves," the robber girl said, pointing to the doves. "I keep them locked inside, because otherwise they will fly off." Gerda was quite frightened. She told the robber girl her story about how much she missed Kai. "Come and sleep over here. I can protect you." The robber girl showed Gerda where to sleep, then curled up nearby, tucking a knife for protection. That night, as the robber girl slept, The doves spoke to Gerda. "We have seen Kai," they said. "He rode in the Snow Queen's sleigh, in Lapland, where it's always winter." "How do I get there?" Gerda asked. "Ask the reindeer," the bird said. "He is from Lapland." In the morning, when Gerda told the robber girl what the doves had told her, the girl decided to help Gerda escape. She snuck her past the rest of her family and gave her the reindeer. "Take this girl with you to Lapland," she instructed. "By doing this, you have earned your freedom from me." The reindeer was overjoyed. He allowed Gerda to climb onto his back and then took her off into the wilderness. They journeyed day after day with little rest. "Look at those northern lights," the reindeer said. The colors danced across the sky. Finally, the pair arrived in Lapland. They stopped at the first house they saw, eager to get out of the cold. The Lapp woman welcomed them. "You still have 100 miles to go. From here, you can see fireworks that the Snow Queen shoots off." The Lapp woman instructed them to find a Finnish woman who lives near the Snow Queen's palace. When you reach her home, the fire was so strong and it was so warm that Gerda had to take her boots and mittens off. The Finnish woman gave the reindeer ice to cool him down and whispered to him that Kai was living. "He thinks it's the best place in the world living with the Snow Queen. He has a sliver of glass in his heart and a grain of glass in his eye. This keeps the Snow Queen's power over him." "Can't you help this poor girl?" the reindeer begged. "Can you give her the power to remove the glass?" "Don't you see she already has the power within her?" the Finnish woman said. "Look at all the animals and people who have served her. Look at how far she has come. That is true power. Take her to the Snow Queen's garden and come back. She will be able to save Kai on her own." The Finnish woman put Gerda on the reindeer's back and sent them off. "I don't have my mittens or my boots," Gerda said. But the reindeer kept running. He stopped at the Snow Queen's garden, let Gerda climb off, and then ran away before Gerda could protest. Gerda stood alone at the gates of the Snow Queen's garden. The snow stung her feet and the wind whistled in her ears. With the palace in sight, she ran through the garden as quickly as her numb feet could carry her. The snow darted in every direction. Gerda continued on, thinking only of her lost friend. Meanwhile, at the Snow Queen's palace, Kai was alone. "I'm going to the warm countries with volcanoes," the Snow Queen said. "I thought I could chalk their peaks a bit." The Snow Queen flew away, and Kai sat by himself. The palace walls were made of snow. The windows were made of ice. The hallways were several miles long and were lit only by the northern lights. In the middle of the palace there was a frozen lake. In the middle of the lake was the Snow Queen's throne. The lake itself was cracked into 1,000,000 pieces of ice. The Snow Queen had told Kai that if he were to form the word eternity with the pieces, he would be free. That was how Gerda found Kai. He was sitting on the icy floor. "Kai!" Gerda cried. "At last I found you!" Gerda ran to him. His body was stiff and cold, and his eyes looked like someone that she didn't recognize. "Kai, sweet Kai, come back to me," Gerda begged. She cried as she held him. "Gerda!" Kai said, "My dear friend, where have you been? What happened to me?" Gerda told him every part of the journey, from her red shoes to the old woman's garden, the crows, the prince and the princess, the robber girl, and the reindeer. She kissed his cheeks, and his cold fingers watched his color return. Kai and Gerda were so happy they stood up and danced. They danced on the icy lake, and the ice danced with them. When the ice stopped, it lay down and formed the word eternity. Now, even if the Snow Queen had returned, Kai had earned his freedom. Hand in hand, Gerda and Kai walked out of the palace. The reindeer was waiting for them in the garden. Soon the snow began to melt. Spring was here. Gerda and Kai traveled together. At the edge of the forest, they came to the river, and in the distance there was a city. They walked up the steps to see grandmother once again. Everything inside looked the same furniture, the same tick-tock clock. But as they stepped through the doorway, They realized